Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Oh, the weather here, it's just lovely. Last couple of days we've had record-breaking heat. Comparatively speaking, it's not terrible, but it's been in the 80s, which is unusual for this time of the year. And then a cold front blew through last night, and while it's still beautiful out, it's substantially cooler today than it was yesterday. I've been telling you, this is the loveliness of living in the Ozarks. It's like this all the time. We can have bitterly cold weather. We'll get 6 inches of snow or more, maybe 8-9 inches of snow, and then within days it could be back up into the 60s. You just never know around here. I want to talk to you about a very boring subject. A subject that some of you just probably aren't even thinking about or don't care about. Well, because we're so focused on all the exciting stuff of like World War III and Armageddon and nuclear war and Red Dawn and EMPs and all of these things that are going to happen, and it's going to destroy us overnight. We'll have to go put our bandanas on our heads and go play some Rambo to protect ourselves from, the invading Chi-Coms and things like that. That's exciting to talk about, right? This subject, not so much. And I'm talking about food. Yeah, food, the actual thing that you need every day to stay alive, or at least you need it often enough to stay alive. The thing that we spend a big part and a much more growing part of our income on just to have. And the food that we get, number one, and the quality is getting poorer and poorer, but the biggest point is that it's becoming more and more expensive. I know you all see this. You're all buying food, right? You're all going to the grocery store. Some of you may still be going out to eat, and you're seeing the prices that are just blowing you away. You can't imagine how in the world it can cost that much for, those few items. Well, it is happening worse, and as all of the other stuff that's going on, there's less and less talk about the fact that food is becoming ridiculously expensive. I haven't eaten at McDonald's in so many years, I wouldn't even know what to do with myself if I went in one. But I'm seeing a lot of people posting videos online where they go to McDonald's and they get a Big Mac, a large drink, and a large fry, and the cost ends up being $16 to $18 in some parts of the country. Now, mind you, that these parts of the country that it's that expensive are places that are putting in like $18 and $20 minimum wages. But I have no idea what it costs around here. I wouldn't think that a meal like that at McDonald's costs that much around where I live, but who knows? I have no idea. But I do know that food has gone up, and going to even a decent, normal little restaurant and just getting a hamburger, fries, and drink is gonna run you at least $15 anymore. And then if you go to buy it at the store to make it yourself, well, it's cheaper. It's not substantially cheaper. I want to show you this chart here. This is an interesting indicator, one of those unscientific that may be more scientific than anything. This is a Google Trends chart, and what this means is that it's tracking how often someone Googles, searches a certain term. And it's searching for like food costs, food inflation type costs, and it's the highest it's ever been, indicating that people are becoming more and more concerned with their food costs. There's countless videos being popped up around the country of young people that are they're just shocked at what it costs to eat now. It's like it's finally dawning on them that they go to the grocery store and they buy $300 worth of groceries, and they come out with 2, maybe 3 little bags of groceries, and they just don't understand how it's possible that it costs so much. They can't imagine it. And I agree. It's crazy what it costs now to feed. The average family of 4 is spending somewhere around $1,000 a month on groceries. $1,000. That just seems astronomical, and that's average. And some, it's well more than that, $1,500 to $2,000 for some families, especially in certain parts of the country. That's insane, folks. We're talking 250 to $300 at least a week in groceries. That's not eating out, that's groceries. That's an absurd amount of money. And it is destroying, well, it's just destroying the middle and lower working classes of folks. And it's going to get worse. It is. The more war we get involved in, the more tearing down in the political system around the world of, enemies and just the breakdown of just the normal trade, it's gonna get worse. The more that we're dealing with all of the craziness when it comes to, well, weather. If you know by now, I'm not a human-made climate change kind of guy, but the planet is changing. The planet is going through some changes. We're watching the sun do some crazy reactive stuff over the last several days, and a lot of stuff is going on. Is this another sign of the end times that we've heard of, the famines, along with the wars and rumors of wars? It's very possible, but the fact is that it is happening, and we're watching things become, well, very expensive. So, instead of just complaining about it, instead of just, hem-hawing around about, wow, it costs me almost $20 to eat a burger and fries now. Well, number one, stop eating out. Just stop. That we don't eat out. It's expensive. You're not getting a good value for your money, and usually you're not getting a good quality food. And I'd just soon eat my own or my wife's cooking anyways. But we have to tighten up the belt is what we have to do. And the number one thing that we should be doing is producing our own food. As self-sufficient people, producing our own food is very important. And so while it's getting into the non-growing season for most everyone listening, meaning it's getting into winter, and that's not when people typically grow a lot of food, it is typically a good time for you to be planning to grow a lot of food. Yes, there's certain things that you can grow in the wintertime depending on your location, and some of you can grow anything in your location during the wintertime. But most people, it's a slowdown, right? Gardens are done, and maybe there's a few winter things, but for the most part, you're not producing a lot of food. You should be producing lots and lots of food, as much as you can throughout the year. And I have been a massive advocate of this for a long time. Most Americans, even if you know how to produce food, even if you know how to grow a garden, don't quite realize how much food it actually takes to kind of live off of. And so you need to be planning for that. This winter, as you're sitting inside around the wood stove, kind of, pondering what you're going to be doing with your homestead the next year, a lot of focus needs to be put on gardening. You should be wintering down your beds about this time of the year, especially in the areas that you're not growing food. And then you should be planning for what you can do to expand. Every year you should be expanding. We've done that every year we've been here. We make the garden bigger and bigger each year. We add to it compost, manure, things like that to improve the soil every year. And the goal is to get to the point that we're just growing too much food. I would love to be able to say we grow way too much food. It's just too much. We have to give it away. We can't can it. We can't, preserve all this food that we're growing. We're growing too much, and we're living off of it. That would be a really good problem to have. Also, you need to be looking into ways to produce meat. I know there's a few non-meat eaters out there, and I'm not going to beat up on you too much. But I'm pretty sure the powers that are ruling over us really don't want us to eat meat. They've said so. They want you to eat bugs. Meat is bad. It's only for the very wealthy, right? It's kind of like the old peasant days. You need to be producing meat. Meat is actually one of the easier things to become self-sufficient on. It really is, as crazy as it sounds. Chickens. You can produce a lot of meat with chickens. Small livestock like goats and sheep don't take up near as much space, and they're just easier to handle. And they're easier to process when it comes time to butchering them. I can dress out and quarter a sheep in about 20 minutes. And then from that point on, all you have to do is just butcher it down into the smaller pieces, but it's not that difficult. And it doesn't take as much space as you think, and you need to be doing as much as you can possibly. We're watching meat prices just continually skyrocket. There's going to be more and more regulations. We're seeing shutdowns of plants, of whether it's meat producing plants or ranches or whatever it is. We're seeing more and more shutdown of other types of food processing plants. But I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing that makes me want to become more and more food independent is the stuff that they're putting into the food. Just recently, Tyson worked out a merger deal with one of the largest bug producing companies in the world, the food bug, right? People bugs. So who knows, are we eventually going to start seeing that as a common additive in American foods? And if that's a red line for you that you're not going to cross, well, then you're either going to not be eating meat, which is part of what they want you to do, or you're going to be producing it on your own or finding someone in your area that you can trust that's producing it. And then there's also all kinds of gene-altering things that they put into food. It is happening. A lot of the American cattle are getting this mRNA technology in them. Not all of them, but I've talked to too many ranchers that say, yeah, they know that it definitely is happening in some areas, that some of the meat is being put into it. And then also there's been a lot of talk over the last few years of putting that kind of stuff in vegetables too. And so it's going to get to the point that even if food is available, and even if you can afford it, it's not going to be something that many of you are going to be willing to eat. And so we can talk about all this other stuff, defense and all the cool things. But if you're not talking about and working on producing your own food, you have a big, huge hole in your plan. You can only stack and stock so much food. There is a limit, really, to how much. You have to be able to produce your own food. I've said for years in doing this channel that the food supplies that you stock, that is just a buffer. That's just a transitionary stockpile. That's all that is. To go from normal times to I'm producing 100% of my own food, and then you can use that stockpile to help you transition, if it's a year or 2 years or whatever, to get to the point that you are producing enough food to really live off of. And it takes a lot more than most people realize. I mean, we put out a huge garden, and we have chickens and ducks and turkeys and sheep and goats, and we're still not producing all of our own food. I mean, we're producing more and more of our own food every year, but still not completely producing. And if tomorrow we woke up and something happened and we had to only produce our own food to live by, it would take a little bit. It's not something that any one person can just ramp up overnight. There's a kind of a transition period, and that can last months or even a few years to get yourself to a point that you're producing enough food to completely live off of. And so that's what the stockpile of food is for. But you need to be producing your own food, because even if we don't get to some level of famine, or that the food doesn't exist because it's the apocalypse, or it's absolutely too expensive to buy, or any of these other extreme scenarios, I think the most likely scenario is just the fact that the food is going to become inedible because of what it's contaminated with. And that is becoming a very likely scenario. And we need to be getting our houses in order in this way, folks. You need to be producing your own food, even if you don't have a big farm. There are ways to produce food. And besides that, that's also a good reason why you should get out and get you a piece of land. It doesn't take as much as you think. 5 acres, you can produce quite a bit on 5 acres, depending on the land. 10 acres is great. You can produce a substantial amount of more food on 10 acres and probably have a little wiggle room on top of that. But the bottom line is you need to be doing it. It needs to be taken seriously. This is also where a tribe, a community comes into play, where you can produce food together and one person focus on one crop and another person focus on another. Regardless, you need to be doing it, because food costs are skyrocketing, folks. and they are putting crazy, abominable stuff in your food. So you need to be getting your houses in order, preparing mentally, physically, and spiritually, and becoming as food independent as you possibly can. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.